Imagine this. You're standing on the moon. It's silent. The Earth hangs in the black sky like a glowing marble. You climb up a ladder, ready to cannonball into the very first swimming pool in space. You leap, arms tucked, legs bent down. Everything goes horribly, hilariously wrong. Today, we're asking a question nobody really needed to ask. What would actually happen if we put a swimming pool on the moon? At first, it sounds simple. Dig a hole, fill it with water, splash around under the stars. But here's the thing. The moon is basically the worst place ever for a pool. There's no air, barely any gravity, and temperatures that swing from hotter than boiling water to colder than dry ice. If you want a pool there, you'll need to build a giant sealed dome, like a glass snow globe, just to keep the water from instantly freezing or boiling away. So let's imagine we have that. We've got our giant dome, breathable air, and a nice Olympic-sized pool right in the middle of the lunar surface. All right, now, let's dive in. First problem, filling the pool. On Earth, you just hook up a hose and wait. On the moon, not so easy. Water is heavy. A standard Olympic pool holds about 660,000 gallons of it. That's roughly 5.5 million pounds. Shipping that much from Earth would cost billions of dollars. It currently costs around $1 million to send a single pound to the moon. So, congratulations. Your pool just bankrupted every space agency on the planet. A cheaper idea would be to use the moon's own ice. There's frozen water hiding in craters at the poles. In theory, you could dig it up and melt it, but melting ice in a vacuum is tricky. Without enough air pressure, the ice would just go straight from solid to gas. No liquid stage in between. So even before you swim, you've got a whole engineering nightmare to deal with. But fine, let's say we somehow filled it. What would swimming actually feel like? The moon's gravity is 1/6 of Earth's. If you weigh 180 pounds on Earth, you'd weigh just 30 pounds on the moon. That sounds awesome until you remember how swimming works. On Earth, you push your body through water, and the water pushes back. But here, you are 6 times lighter, while the water stays just as heavy. That means when you kick or stroke, you mostly just spin in place like a very confused turtle. You'd have to paddle 6 times harder just to move a few feet and dive in. On Earth, you dive, cut through the surface, and sink. On the moon, you'd float down in super slow motion, like a piece of toast drifting toward the floor. When you hit the water, you wouldn't sink at all. You'd kind of bounce on top like you just belly flopped into a giant bowl of Jell-O. Graceful? No. Entertaining? Absolutely. And then there are the waves. When you cannonball into a pool on Earth, waves ripple out and quickly fade. But with weaker gravity, water on the moon behaves differently. The waves would move in slow motion and take forever to settle. A single splash could have the pool sloshing wildly for hours, like a never-ending tsunami in miniature. It would be the worst swimming experience ever, and also kind of mesmerizing to watch. But here's where it gets dangerous. What if the dome holding your pool cracked? The air pressure would drop instantly, and all that liquid water would flash boil into vapor. Not because it's hot, but because there's no pressure to keep it liquid. The entire pool would explode into a cloud of steam, launching anyone inside it skyward like a human cannonball. Imagine trying to explain that to NASA. Yeah, we lost the astronauts. Turns out they went full popcorn kernels. Now let's picture the high dive. On Earth, a nice leap off the board sends you flying a few feet. On the moon, you'd soar 6 times higher. It would feel like slow-motion superhero flight. You'd hang in the air for several seconds, screaming in terror before finally plopping into the water. But remember, because you're so light, you wouldn't sink or cut through the water. You'd just skip along the surface like a skipping stone. Cool to look at, terrible for actual swimming. So, could you really swim laps in a moon pool? Not really. It would be less like exercise and more like starring in a low-budget disaster movie. Between awkward floating, endless waves, and the constant risk of the whole thing exploding, it's a bad idea for humans, but an absolutely amazing one for science fiction movies. The funniest part If you manage to push off really hard underwater, you could actually launch yourself out of the pool completely and smash into the ceiling of the dome. Astronaut lifeguards would need jetpacks, so while a moon pool sounds like a fun vacation spot, in reality, it's a logistical nightmare and a swimming hazard unlike anything on Earth. Better to keep your cannonballs here at home and leave the moon for exploration, science, and maybe, just maybe, future space colonies. Thanks for diving into this weird what if with me. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. Tell me in the comments what bizarre moon experiment we should try next. And don't forget to subscribe for more science adventures. Until then, keep your feet on the ground and your pools firmly on Earth.